sometimes people do things and I look at them and I say, how do you get away with that? It's the Bob and Sheri Oddcast, the Bob and Sheri Oddcast. Come on in and you'll have a blast with the Bob and Sheri Oddcast.
That's really awful.
All right.
That is just tragically
You say that
awful.
every week.
Well,
because we're coming from different locations.
It doesn't get any better, yeah.
Well, let's hire, the jingle package company out of Dallas to do it. That's what we need to do.
I might just do the jingle myself.
Well, that'd be good. So I was over at a friend of mine's wine shop, which is called Arthur's, and his name was Robert. And I was talking to him, and I said, Robert, I want to try a rosé wine. My wife wants a rosé wine. What do you recommend? I like something dry. He says, I got just the thing for you. And he takes me over to the rosé area. And I didn't know this, but rosé has slightly less alcohol content than like Chardonnay or a Cab. I had no idea that was the case. And he was pointing that out. And I said, wow, I didn't know that was redo. What is it? And I think the average glass of wine is something like 14%, right? And this was like 11%, which is not, it's not like you're drinking water, but it's a little less. I said, why do they do that? Or how does that happen? And he said, I don't know how it happens, but people in California this time of the year, they drink it like it's water all day long. I could not be even rosé wine with reduced alcohol content. I could not be drinking like water all day long. It just, I would go to bed.
Any day drinking at all, it turns me into a slug.
I know, me too.
I see people doing it, like especially like on TV commercials. You see people, find your beach. If I'm out in the sun and alcohol's involved, I'm going to have to be scraped up off the ground and carried in.
You'll find your beach.
Oh, yeah. I'm in awe of people that can do that. They have different metabolisms, I think.
Different lifestyles, too. I mean, it's like they're drinking it all day long. Do you have a job? Do you have a job to go to? Drinking all day, even rosé. I just don't see how they do it.
Day drinking for me is like it's a commitment. Someone will announce, we're day drinking today, and I'll make note to self. Go ahead and take your bra off because you won't be going anywhere and soon you'll be unconscious. Like there's just no point. I don't know how people do it. I don't know how they function. Like I sometimes think, I thought this a lot when I was watching the TV show Mad Men. And I think about it when I'm reading books or watching old movies where people are having cocktails at lunch. And then they're in these nightclubs and they're all dressed up and it's 2:00 in the morning and they're drinking. Maybe booze didn't used to be as strong as it is now. I don't know.
No, it always has been. No,
I'm weak.
It always has been. It always has been. The Bob and Sheri newsletter went out, and usually Sheri writes the blog. When she was so busy that I filled in, and I wrote a blog about summer. And I started off by saying summer is a great marker of time. You tend to remember things more vividly and bigger moments more vividly in the summer than you do, like, I don't know, October. Christmas, of course, is a marker of time too. And I was calling attention to above ground pools. And then I said, what else do I remember out of that era? When I was like 10, 11 or 12. And the strangest things came to my mind. One of them was, and it was so random, a root beer double stick popsicle. Not a cherry, not a grape, but root beer. Going in to the local farm market, we used to call it, Muzzio's Farm Market. I'd ride my bike down there and I'd go in and they had a freezer. And you never know what was going to be in there, I'd look in the freezer because it's like 85 degrees and it gets humid in New England. And I'm looking in there. Oh, man, I just don't want orange. Oh, I don't want a creamsicle. What's that? Oh, it's a double stick root beer. Yes. And it was just like you won something. You got this prize because in kiddom, there's no buying a new sports car. There's no buying a new pair of shoes or anything. You had to have the little stuff had to be the stuff that really turned you on. and a double stick, and then you go outside and you let it hit the heat for just a little bit, where you could bite the top of the popsicle and go right through it. Or maybe you'd break the two of them apart and eat one at a time. I haven't seen a root beer popsicle thing in years. I don't even know if they existed anymore. But there was something that you didn't get it all the time, so it was special. And its liquid cousin is birch beer, the drink, which I also.
That's a real Pennsylvania thing, birch beer is.
I love
Oh,
birch
I
beer.
must be all over the Northeast. So I have decided that this summer I am going to embrace nostalgia, which, they say it's just keeping you from really living in the present. You're not going to progress. You're living in the past. It's been a long year. So I think if I'm embracing the past just a little bit, and please go to bobandsheri.com and find the newsletter, sign up, and I hope you'll read what I wrote. I'm going to embrace some stuff that it's just pure nostalgia for me. I'm going to find a root beer double stick somewhere. I know where I can find the birch beer. I can find that at that place I told you about, Blackie's Hot Dogs. They serve it on tap. And the other thing is, I'm going to hunt down a clam roll. And I haven't had a clam roll with the clam bellies, fried clams, and a hot dog thing. I haven't had one of those in years. Is it so wrong for just like a week to live in the past like that?
No, I think we all do that. I know when I go up to Philly to visit my family, I'm getting a Pop's water ice. I'm getting a soft pretzel. I'm getting a Jim's cheesesteak. I'm getting a
Yeah.
Panzerati. Do you know what a Panzerati is?
No.
It's such a Delaware Valley thing. I
What
can't
is it?
find them anywhere else. Well, you're going to want one really bad, so brace yourself, okay?
Go ahead.
A Panzerati, you get it at a pizza place, like a mom and pop pizza joint. They
Mhm.
roll the dough out like as though they were making a pizza, and they put, the fillings in it, the sauce, the cheese, if you want other things, pepperoni, whatever. Then they fold it over so it looks a little bit like a half moon. They drop it in a deep fryer and they fry it, and it puffs up and it comes out brown and roughly the same size and shape as a regulation football. And then you break into it, and the inside is all the melted pizza toppings, and the outside is this crackling, thin,
Yeah, I want that.
crunchy fried crust.
It
is
sounds like a calzone, but a calzone is baked, right?
a calzone is baked and usually has ricotta cheese in it. A Panzerati is basically a pizza pocket, a deep fried pizza pocket. So imagine your drunken high self at 2:00 in the morning getting a
Yeah.
3rd-degree mouth burn on a Gino's pizza roll. This is
Yeah.
the gourmet version of that. It's so
That's what I
freaking
want.
good. Yeah, you're
That's
gonna
what I
that.
want.
I
I'm
think
trying to think.
everybody does that.
You think so?
I do, yeah. I mean, ever since my children were old enough to walk and talk, when I take them there, when I take them up there, when I take them home, that is our routine. They get all the foods of my childhood. And now when we go, they want to go get Pop's water ice and they want to go to Jim's and have a cheesesteak. There are certain things that you discover when you're a kid or a teenager. And even if you chase that high your whole life and you never get exactly the same taste sensation that you remembered from that root beer popsicle or that root beer float or whatever, you chase that high forever because
Yeah, that pleasure.
it's so laced with not just memory, but physical sensation. Like I know what a
Yeah.
root beer popsicle is because that's a Philly thing too. And
Mhm.
when I would be little and be visiting one of my sets of grandparents, one of my pop-pops would give me like some change out of his pocket, and I could walk to the corner store all by myself in the city and and it was a Hershey's brand root beer popsicle. Because I've never seen any other company make root beer. You'd get a Hershey's brand root beer popsicle and you'd walk out, and the streets of Philly sound a very specific way and they smell a very specific way, and it's hot as balls because the streets, the black asphalt, everything's real crowded together, tons of traffic, tons of people, and you peel off that paper and that first bite of that root beer popsicle, you could spend the rest of your life chasing that high and never quite get back to that exact perfect moment.
And it wouldn't be as good during the fall, winter, or spring. It has to be the summer. There has to be a little bit of a melting thing going on with that popsicle, you know?
It's a combination of it's a little bit melted, but not so melted that you have to
Right.
slurp it, right?
Yeah,
And when
exactly.
and when you bite into it, it fractures. It kind of flakes apart. Super good. And the worst thing was, at least for me, when my pup would say, because he was the one that had the throat cancer, so he had the little hole in his neck and the doily covering it. And when he
Yeah.
talked, he sounded like Donald Duck. He would say in his very thick Sicilian accent, "Take your cousin Stevie with you and share the popsicle." Oh, Pop, I don't want to share this popsicle with my cousin Stevie. Take your cousin Stevie with you, share the popsicle. Please, can we not? I think they're a quarter. Can we not each have a popsicle? Do you think I'm made of money? Take your cousin Stevie, share the popsicle. And so I would have to, the double stick that you were describing, you have to break it and share it with your little cousin. But those memories are so vivid. And I think part of the reason they're so vivid is because when you're a child, your brain doesn't have a lot of clutter. And so the
Right.
experiences that you have are so novel and saturated with color and sound and taste and emotion that they lock into your brain in a way that is unique and specific to childhood. And that's why we chase that high. Don't you think?
Yeah, without a doubt. The mom and pop that I'm thinking of was in East Haven, Connecticut, which is not one of the glamour towns in Connecticut, although it's been somewhat gentrified from what I hear. I'm gonna be going back. And our next door neighbors, the Lanes, Charles Lane's wife was a physician, and she was Lebanese. And their family, her sisters, and they called each other sister. They didn't call each other Navard or Julie or whatever. It was hello sister, hello brother. His or her brother, I think, lived in East Haven too, and they lived right on the water. Now, when I say that, everybody's picturing something like in Malibu. This is living on a over a stone wall to keep the Long Island Sound away. So it was you'd walk a certain time of the day, low tide, it's all rocks and a few boulders. But when high tide came in, it was licking the side of the wall near their summer house. And it's a small house, it's a little bungalow, right? But it was exotic for me. And I would go there once in a while with my mother because she was friends with Navard. But sometimes my mother, who was working as a dental hygienist then, would say, Navard, Bobby and Ken, my brother, they're just going to be hanging around this house all day long. Are you going to your beach place? And it wasn't even called a beach place, the place by the shore. And she would say, yeah, you want me to take them? And I could remember going. So my parents aren't there, but I was comfortable enough to go there. The Lanes had a daughter named Linda Lane. Isn't that something? And I can remember getting on my bathing suit and getting into the water never warms up, as you know, in that part of the world. So it could be 85, 90 degrees outside, but that water is going to be like 57 degrees. But it was so refreshing, and it was such a thrill to get into that water, go down those steps, and right away you're up to your waist. And then you would swim out to this outcropping, this one big rock, and you could sit there and look at this and get sunburned and just look at the water and then swim back. And I remember this one day, I don't know why certain things stick in your mind. I couldn't be more than 11 years old, but I go into the house and I'm drying myself off, and the three sisters say, time to eat, son, time to eat. And I go over to the dining area, and it's got one of those oilcloth covers, and I sit down, and these green things came out. And I went, what? Because I'm used to hamburgers. I went, what's that? And one of the sisters said, that's a grape leaf. Go ahead, eat that. And I'm looking at its dark green leaf, and it's got kind of a greasy coating. And I'm going, oh, geez, I don't want to eat this, but they're all looking at me. And so I take it and I bite into it. It's about the size of my fist. And I bite into it, and it's got rice in it and some spices. And I don't know, maybe there's some ham or something in there. And it was pretty good. And I ate it. And I'm going, this is great. And I'm going to walk down to the mom and pop's store. I'm going to get a birch beer or maybe some bubble gum in just a minute. And I'm finishing it up. And then I hear one of the sisters say to Navarre, the next door neighbor, "Where's the mother?"
Oh, and
And
that made you embarrassed and
it did.
uncomfortable.
It because I could tell by that the way she questioned, it wasn't like, "Where's Bob's mom? Is she working?" "Where's the mother?" She was judging and
Yeah.
judging my mother, and I hated it. And I just so wanted to go home.
This was something that was such a regular part of my childhood because my parents were such a
Really?
disaster. Yeah. My parents were, I mean,
Oh
so
yeah,
like
I see what you mean.
my father was a psychopath and my mom was troubled and often absent. And, and I mean, for days and nights at a time. Like the whole reason I got snatched up and brought back east to be with my grandparents is because both my parents went AWOL, leaving me and my little brother to fend for ourselves in Wyoming in February when I was 12. And one of the townspeople, after 3 or 4 days, called my grandmother back east and said, something needs to be done. Those two kids are on their own. And
No kidding.
the house we lived in, it didn't have central heating. We heated it
Yeah,
with a fireplace. And so
yeah,
you
yeah.
had to have firewood. The two of us, we were going to school. We were riding the bus every day. Thank God for free school lunches, which we qualified for. And we would come home and we were fending for ourselves. My older brother was already gone. And
Where was he? Where was your older brother? He wasn't that much older.
He was older enough, so my father was physically very abusive toward my older brother. He
Hmm.
reserved psychological and emotional and verbal abuse for the rest of us, but he beat the shit out of my older brother from my earliest memories. Like I can remember
Hmm.
my older brother being 8 years old. I would have been almost 4, and cowering in the kitchen between the refrigerator and the wall while my father just pummeled him with his fists. I
So
mean,
did he leave at like
so
16 or whatever?
well, my grandparents were well aware of how desperate the situation was, and so they were afraid that if they didn't get my older brother out of there, that he
Hmm.
would be killed. Which I know sounds melodramatic to normal people. Sorry, not sorry. That's just the reality that I grew up in. So they called my parents and made an offer. Let Marky, that's what they called him, let Marky come back east to finish school, and we'll take care of it. And so my brother jumped at the chance. Now
Did he?
it destroyed me the day my
Hmm.
brother left because he had been our protector. He was more
Yeah,
a
you never
parent
told
to
me
me
this story before. Go ahead.
than my parents. So
Hmm.
my brother left, and I just thought that's it. I'm never going to see him again because we're never going to be allowed to go visit. And also now there's nobody here to stop my father because my older brother would throw himself in the path of it. So my
Hmm.
father would be raging at my mother or at one of us, and my older brother would throw himself in front of that train and take the hit.
Right.
Without him there, right? There would be nobody to protect us. So it's the we were the talk of the town
So
for
that takes us back to where's the mother? So
yeah
people were
we
saying, "Where's the father? Where's the mother?"
yeah it was I would hear people openly talking about what a disgrace it was that we looked the way we looked,
Uh,
like when I came back east to live with my grandmother. I had clinical malnutrition. I mean, I looked like a skeleton, dark
hmm.
circles under my eyes, patchy hair. Like people talked all kinds of shit about us. And the thing is, kids can hear. And
Yeah, that's right. That was my point.
sometimes like I would be around other kids and their parents. And now as an adult, like at that time I didn't understand it. But now as an adult, I can hear it wasn't it felt like disgust to me as a child, and it made me feel
Hmm.
so ashamed. I carried so much shame. But I think back on some of those experiences, and what I hear now in those adult voices is outrage and fear that these two kids are walking the world like this, right?
Right. Well, my situation obviously was nothing like that. That's horrific. But nonetheless, I felt terrible that somebody was talking some shit about my mother. And all my mother was doing was working to put some food on the table and trying to get her kid out in the sun for a day in the summer rather than hanging around a house.
When things like that happen, and adults who have forgotten what it's like to be a kid tend to be the culprits here. When something like that happens to you as a kid, it 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 fills you with shame, and you carry that shame in one form or another for a long time, maybe forever, if you never come to grips with it and never learn to separate what is yours to hold and what is other people's to hold. So I don't like when I see adults doing that where children can hear. And I think of those adults. How did you lose so much touch with your child self that you don't understand how much these words are going to wound that kid? That kid that you're talking shit about, that kid is a helpless kid. You're talking shit about that kid's parents in front of that kid, but what that kid hears is, I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm dirty,
well, I'm causing this
damaged.
situation.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm causing, because I had nothing to do. I couldn't figure out something to do with myself. My 11-year-old self, somehow I've put the family in an embarrassing situation. And, it was funny because they were very nice people. It's just they were old country and, sitting around with not a lot to do, retirement age. And they're just kind of looking around and they've seen the water enough. And then here's something new, something novel, a kid without his mother.
They were judging your mom, but by doing it in your earshot, they not only attacked your mom, but they made you feel suddenly very large and homely and unwanted.
Right.
Like a creature taking up space. People and you've given me grief about this. People tease me and give me a hard time about how I take in stray people, stray animals. Well, why do you think I do that? Because I was a stray. And I know what it's like to not be sure if you have a safe place to go tonight, to not have food. Like, I know what that's like. So if somebody is in that situation or any situation remotely approaching having no other place to go, of course I'm gonna grab that person.
Well, I know that about you. I know enough of your backstory to realize that over the years, that's what you've been doing, whether it's an out of work waiter, a dog wandering around, your niece, whoever it may be. I just sometimes worry, or I'll tease you, like you're taking on an awful lot, and at one point you're taking on too much. And because I care about you, I don't want to see, you driven yourself crazy.
I will. Crazy. When I see a kid, especially, like I'm so sensitive, overly sensitive too, I admit. When I see a kid that somebody's fucking with, it's almost impossible for me to stay on my side of the line. And I have to be so careful because that's how you get your face punched in, like if you're not, right? I have to be so careful about that. But I do know, I've had lots of therapy and a lot of time to build my life to be something where I could be safe and warm and cared for, right? But when I see that kind of thing going down, it brings out my Philly. If I had been standing there when that woman said in your earshot, "Where's the mother?" I would have addressed it. We just had an incident at a dance competition where there was kind of an unfortunate and ugly divorce, and the non-custodial parent sent out a group email to every dance family and blasted his kid and his ex-wife, and was it was appalling.
What an asshole.
And I read that and I said, "Oh no, you fucking did not just do that." And I hit reply all and very gently and in a very social worky way invited him to sit his whole ass right down and stay silent and apologize to the families that you just dragged into your private matter, and that this is abusive behavior. You don't do this to your child. Of course I did not get a response because it's a bully, and all bullies, their fuel is intimidation and silence. You call them out on that shit and
Yeah.
they don't like it.
They'd
Now,
fold.
is he gonna probably come murder me? Maybe, I don't know. But having been the kid on the receiving end of that kind of emotional and physical attack, and having been the kid that was humiliated and embarrassed in front of all my peers by this kind of bullshit. Oh no, you didn't. I did not stay silent for that.
You know
So
what?
I
You
do
know
have
what?
to be careful.
You know what got me through that day? I can remember this too. What got me through that day is I heard that, and not right away, but in a few minutes, I told Navard that I was going to go down to the corner store and get a birch beer because they sold the birch beer. It's a clear, soft drink, you know. It's got a little
Tastes
bit
like
of a
root beer,
kick.
kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. And the particular brand that I got was in a thick, clear bottle. I mean, this was a substantial bottle. And I can remember saying, I'll be right back. And I walked down. And of course, then you could walk out of the house onto a sidewalk next to a busy street or with no sidewalk. And nobody thought twice of it back then. So I walked down there and my mother gave me some money. She gave me like, $1.50 for the day. And I was able to get away and buy that thing. And I didn't have to ask anybody for the money because my mother had already given it to me. And it gave me sort of a sense of pride that, yeah, we may be hanging out here at your house by the shore. We have enough money for birch beer.
Mm. I just, what do you, that I would love to say, well, it's a thing that happened and it wasn't a big deal, but it stayed with you in a way that
Yeah.
geometry didn't,
Yeah, that's true. Thanks for
I,
reminding me of that too, by the way.
if I were to say right now, hey, your life depends on it, talk to me about the Monroe Doctrine, you couldn't. But these kind of things, they leave like little scars on our child hearts, and we do carry them. And then you have to say to yourself, well, what am I going to do with this little piece of baggage that I'm carrying? What's the cliche? Is it going to make me bitter, or is it going to make me better? And the goal is be better. Like, don't be that person that slices a scar across a child like that. Why would you ever make a child feel unwelcome? Why would you ever make a child feel unwanted? What the hell? What do you have in your life that you need to do that to a kid?
By the way, the Monroe Doctrine would not tolerate further colonization or puppet monarchs. And I did not just look that up online.
I can tell that. It's just right off the top of your head.
That's all right. I mean, it's not the worst thing that could have happened to me, but it's funny that you mentioned it. Why would I remember that decades later if it didn't in some way make an impression that was negative on my brain? It would have. There's a million things that come in and out of your head as a kid, especially. Why did that one thing, I mean, there are a lot of things to be embarrassed about, but that one really upset
I'll tell you
me.
why. I'll tell you why. I'm put my social worker hat on, because that created in you a feeling of shame. And what is the difference between guilt and shame? Here it is in a nutshell. Guilt, I did something bad. Shame, I'm bad.
Yeah.
And
I always knew that I wasn't bad, but I was worried that society saw our family as losers.
As bad. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, why that stayed with you in a way that a gazillion things didn't is because that was an experience of shame. And shame is when we feel that we ourselves are intrinsically bad, dirty, unwanted, unlovable. And that's what a comment like that, that's the residue that a comment like that leaves behind.
Well, thank God I found radio. I found something that I could do all my life and never have any shame about anything that I've done.
With complete dignity.
Right.
You know what though? All of that experience, not just that one incident, but that feeling that you carried for so long, that pervasive feeling that our family was bad and there was something about us that was unworthy, something about us that was unwelcome. That actually became the fuel that propelled you to be a successful adult. So it wasn't,
it was.
You made something good of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to erase it, to say, hey, you were wrong because, look what I've got. Look who I'm married to. This beautiful woman. She's got a doctorate. I have a really nice house. I have wonderful friends, and I'm on this wonderful radio show with all these fantastic people listening. Yeah, that's probably one of the driving forces of picking this, type of a career, right? There's always some sort of mental illness behind wanting to be in some part of show business.
I do want to say that there's always more than one way to say something, right? There's a way that you can say something that doesn't leave a mark. That woman could have said to her sister, it's nice that, what was the kid's name? The next door neighbor kid, whatever. It's
Linda.
nice that so and so has a friend to play with. I guess his mom's at work, or is
Exactly.
everything okay at home? Or
Exactly.
nothing, because it's none of your business. But there were a lot of ways. When you say, where's the mother, that is so shitty, right? Like,
It
there
is.
were other ways to say that.
And these, in my mind's eye, and memory is a tricky thing, but in my mind's eye, this house was lived in by 2 or 3 different adults. There were no kids. They were all of retirement age. There was brother, and I think the 3 sisters. And probably some of them didn't have children, or the children were long gone from the nest. And so, how certain people just get into a thing where having children around is something they don't relate to anymore. So they can speak out and say something and ask a question like that in front of the kid, within earshot of the kid. And it's like the kid is a chair, not really a human being that should be nurtured. I think they were so used to being old people, living alone together with their own family history that gave this one woman carte blanche to bring that up.
My kid has a friend who has anxiety to a near paralyzing degree. Really struggles, very shy, and literally cannot eat in front of people that are not very, very familiar. So one day, this kid was over at the house, and they were working on a school project together. And it was, getting late in the day. So I said to my daughter, would so and so like to stay for dinner? And my daughter said, yeah, but they can't really, they can't, because they can't swallow their food if strangers are around. And I said, well, you can come upstairs and put everything on a tray and bring it down here, and just the two of you can eat dinner together. And so that's what we did. And Kevin's like,
Good for
what's,
you.
Kev goes, what's going on here? And I said, this kid can't, their anxiety is such that they can't swallow their food around people they don't know. And my husband, of course, looks at me like, because he thinks I'm,
Where's
like,
the mother?
Yeah, right. But because I so vividly remember being the kid in the difficult situation,
Right.
there's, what do I care if the two of you just look at each other while you eat? It's dinner time. Eat dinner.
Yeah.
I'm not here to prove a fucking point or teach somebody a lesson. I'm just trying to get through the life, as best I can with minimal damage.
There's a likelihood that child will remember that. Will remember when she was over at her friend's house and her mother just heard the situation and took it in hand, and all of a sudden she's eating with her friend and everything is fine and she had a nice time.
And you can
And
believe
she ate over at someone else's house.
and cleaned her plate.
Yeah.
But you can best believe that I did not say, honey, I know that this is difficult for you, so I'm going to let you too. I just said to my daughter, come put it on a tray and just keep doing your homework.
Right. Just
Because I know what it's like to be you standing there while somebody says, where's the mother? And there's no way that I want to intentionally or knowingly create that situation for a kid. So sometimes as an adult, no matter how aggravated you're tired you are or bewildered by the circumstances, that's a child.
Yeah.
Keep
and very
your
often
words in
the
your
answer
mouth.
the answer is to where's the mother? She's working.
Yeah. Yeah, and how nice for you that that's not something that happens at your house, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And in our case, when this happened to me and my little brother all those years ago, when they said where's the parents, he and I looked at each other because we didn't even know.
Right.
So until you really understand what's happening in someone else's life, whether they're 6 or 106, the easiest and best path is always compassion.
Right. And let me just say that
if there's an ass kicking that's needed, that'll become clear down the road. But why not start with compassion?
Out of the 3 sisters, Navarre, the next door neighbor, was lovely. And I still have wonderful memories about her. She was very nice to me, and she was the one who took me to that little cottage, and her husband used to take me out on his boat. So I have warm memories of all of them. But anyway, I'm going to bathe myself in nostalgia for 3 or 4 days this summer, get a popsicle, a birch beer, and a hot dog. And I can't wait.
Well, I'm going to bathe myself in Tito's as soon as we finish up work today because it's really been a day. And on that note, we end today's Oddcast. Yeah, that's where the mother is. She's at the ABC store. We end today's Oddcast to remind you that we do new episodes, unless it's a holiday, every Monday and Friday. Our website is BOBANDSHERI.com. We so appreciate your listening. And if you have a hot second to rate the podcast and review it, that helps the algorithm spread it around, which helps keep us in business. And that's something that we very, very much appreciate because we all have very needy and bizarre dogs that we have to care for. We'll see you next time on the Oddcast. Hey, thank you so much for listening to the Bob and Sheri podcast and the Bob and Sheri Oddcast. We would love if you would subscribe, rate and review, and share it with a friend on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you go. And thank you again for listening.